Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
Hello, I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for...
Well, I'll pod 200 times and you'll pod 200 times more. Unspun.
Oh, Santa. Oh, Santa. Actually, it's a good looking hat. For those who are listening to the podcast, George looks exceptionally goofy in his hat. Oh, it's good. It's good.
I am not a hat guy. So I got my Santa hat on, and I'm going to take that off now because I look like an idiot.
You and Brian. Episodes. You and Brian both not hat guys. Very nice. Very nice. 200.
200. Congratulations. Happy 200th episodes.
4 years.
4 years. Season 5. Hey, season 5 coming up. If we were one of those the reality TV shows, wouldn't it be season 10 or something?
Yes, and we'd also take a hiatus in the middle of the year.
That's right. 2 seasons. So let's go with season 10.
Okay, season 10 of
UnSpun. 15. I don't even know. Anyways, 200 episodes. I think it's got to be a record in Vancouver for podcasts. This has been quite a journey with you. I mean, we really were winging it from the beginning.
Where did we start? I think we started with wood chippers at the legislature.
Oh my God, yeah.
I think we started with. Story. It was a big story. We're talking like we didn't even know we didn't even know what was coming in COVID, right? We had no concept of where we were headed.
At the end of that first year.
Yeah.
So we started the show here where I am, where you're not here, and behind me is my beautiful drapes with the UnSpun. If you watch the show, you'll see this beautiful logo behind me. So it looks like
we should tell the story of how that. I mean, I had nothing to do with that logo. You and I talked about what we should call this. First of all, we had lunch together. You called me and said, "Are you running for office?" No.
Question you get all the time. Still.
Weird. Yeah.
Yes.
And instead I said, "No, but I think you're really good radio and we should do a podcast together because you're very smart." And you're like, "People don't like me." And I'm like, "I like you and we should do a podcast." And we don't always agree.
Never change.
Sure.
We don't. Quite often we don't agree. But the impetus for me, this was McLean Kay from the Orca, which was an organization that a really great website and media outlet. He approached both of us to write columns for the Orca, and you were like, okay, and I was like, ugh, no, because writing a column is hard work.
It's hard.
Doing a podcast. I was like, I'll do a podcast. And, I briefly kind of talked about it. And so suddenly he said, we'll throw you guys together. And we literally put that first show together thinking it was kind of a pilot that wouldn't air.
We were just going to try it out.
We wake up the next morning and it's out there.
Remember the picture that Amanda took, your partner Amanda? Remember, who we call our executive producer because she would sit in the room to make sure you didn't step in it, literally. But remember, she goes, we need a picture for this. And so we walked out on your Curve Communications fire escape in the back and stood there, and Amanda snapped a picture with her. And that is our thumbnail photo of our podcast. It
is many gray hairs since. I'm going to reshoot that shot.
No, we're going to leave it just as it is. I'm 4 years younger in that picture. I will take it. No, but it's been a real interesting journey, and for how we came up with the idea of UnSpun, because you're very good at looking through the noise that is laid out, not by quote unquote the media, but the political landscape met by the media outlets, met by word of mouth, met by social media, and people want to sort of craft the narrative. And at Curve Communications, your crisis communications, among other things, but you're also
advertising,
right, but you're also an insider when it comes to having walked the walk in politics, as well as working to create spin, frankly, because advertising is spin, as is, helping on campaigns and what have you. So you've got this unique perspective, and
really unusual. Yeah.
I pick your brain a lot on this. You've taught me a lot, and in turn, I think you teach our listeners or viewers, because you can watch at unspunpodcast.com because we do this for YouTube. And also you can listen to us because we are the fastest 30 minutes in political talk, I guess. What did you say yesterday on air? You were like, we're the longest running and greatest most watched Vancouver podcast.
promo alert on NW. Yeah, no, yeah, I think you're right. 'Cause having worked as a journalist and then as a marketer and then
Right.
as a politician and then as a backroom strategist, politically, I have this unusual sort of perception of how the world works when it comes to politics. Certainly, knowing what might be happening. I don't always know what's happening, but usually I get notes from people saying, "How did you know that?" And I say, I don't know, but I can guess the scenarios, and we're going to talk a bit about those later on,
Yeah.
of what's going on behind the scenes. But and that's kind of what it's about. A lot of what politics is about is measuring and checking and data and and spinning, and sometimes spinning out of control, or sometimes spinning in the right way, or sometimes not spinning, is also worth talking about. I think that's kind of what we talk about. It's that a lot of the show is really about who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong, and we call them on it, and we do
Yeah.
say we compliment them when they do well, when they're more honest, and we call them when they're not being honest. As much as you for example, might hate the former mayor of Surrey, Doug McCallum. He wasn't spinning much. He
No.
didn't care, and so you get what you voted for, and then in the end they voted him out. So there's spin, and then there's messaging, and all those things in between. And it's you and I guess we kind of really, and we have fans, which is nice, and we want
Yeah.
more. But
You ran into
it's
one of the fans
yeah,
actually
Rob
this
McLeod.
morning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I was at the Down syndrome. We have
Hi, Rob.
one of our clients, and hey, Rob, and it's fun when people come up to you and say they listen to the show and they love the way we.
Yeah.
And you had another one yourself yesterday from within the police community, and I think
I
that's
did.
interesting. You get this
Somebody I'd
audience
never
member to
met who said, "How do you
right,
and George actually do your podcast? Because I
yeah,
like it. I like the format and it seems authentic." And I'm like, "Well, we sit down, we talk for 5 minutes,
I know.
we write down a list that looks very, you know,
Yours is tidier than mine. Mine is literally no points, like a mess. I can't even. I write the promo for it. Yeah, that's and that's true. I mean, this isn't always the way you should do podcasts, everybody. But Jody and I meet, online now. Before it was in person, but for 5 minutes we sit down and go, what's the chat? What are we going to talk about? What are the main issues? We don't get into it. We may kind of start
save the
talking and
juice."
save it for the show. And then we just wing it. And we always seem to be right on about 30 minutes. I don't know why. We never said, let's make this 30 minutes.
No,
I think maybe we just get exhausted after 30. It's like, okay, I'm
I think
done.
that's all we got time for. We got that. We
Yeah,
ain't nobody got time for this. But 30 minutes, the fastest 30 minutes in unspun discussion is a good little bite-sized podcast for
mm-hmm,
people who just want to be up to
mm-hmm,
speed. It's like, what's happening? What's really happening? Because we don't
mm-hmm.
have an agenda. Where when we're talking about, like you said, the people that we criticize for doing things that we would say is not the best choice, or it's done in a way that is unfair or what have you. And if they pivot
Yep.
to doing something that's fair or make a good choice, we're going to come around to that as well. There's no agenda like we only like these people or we only like that. And you and I oftentimes come from very different perspectives. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just use one example of you live in a tower and I'm all about gentle density. We both want to create more housing, and development is a good thing, and developers create housing. So people who want housing but hate developers, like we have these conversations that are the gray area in between the silos of people. And I think that's really an
Mm-hmm.
important part of any discussion. And it's not about gentle density in towers right now. So don't even go there, buddy. But I do want to talk about
I think
developers
we're
at
both
some point.
pragmatists. I think
I
we're
think
both
so.
pragmatists too. I think
I
that's
agree.
that, we look at things like, and so it's that's what makes it fun. And I hope
I
people
think
are
it's
enjoying it.
fun too, George. You can't quit me.
I'm trying.
You try
200
all the time. You're
episodes.
like,
Can't we
maybe we
just like
shouldn't. Maybe we just, and I'm like, no, I'll see you on Thursday. That's what we do. We do it on Thursdays. So before we dive into some of the newsy stuff from this week, and we're going to
yes.
reflect back on the last year in review, because this is our last episode of 2022. What a 10-year span this last year has been for us. It feels like it's been 10
And
years.
we never run out of material, and that makes it easier because it has been intense news. And I would say right now it might be the quietest it's been for news, but even still, we found some stuff to talk about.
We did. But before we get to the housing discussion between the Premier and the Mayor of Vancouver and the
Mm-hmm.
Minister of Housing, uh, a Vancouver City Councilor made it on Jimmy Kimmel.
Saw that. It's cool. I mean, in a bad way, I guess. It's a
Well,
blooper.
I think, it's a blooper, and it takes me back to like early episodes of Happy Days. Like you'd go to the diner and somebody would call in the diner and have somebody paged with a name. We used to do it at the
Yeah.
Stardust roller rink in Richmond. We'd
Did
call
you?
up and ask them to page,
Oh
and
my God.
they caught on pretty quickly because we were doing like stupid stuff, which this was for sure. And Councillor Fry
Pete Fry, yeah.
got duped by at a public consultation hearing where a Vancouver citizen who had applied to speak entered his name as Jack, and his last name was My Daddy Off.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Okay. And it was repeated a couple times, and
He
Jimmy
said it
Kimmel
like 3
loved it.
times.
Jimmy Kimmel loved
Yeah.
it, and he put it on his year in review of the best clips. It didn't win. It was the one that won was the people that were like breaking their hips on the big slide, because the people who engineered one of those huge slides like that. Yeah. So that was the one that beat out Councillor Fry, but Jimmy loved it.
So kudos to Councillor Fry. You accomplished something. Well done in your 4 years in office in the world's worst council in the history of Vancouver.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about the green bins going to every 2 weeks? No.
Well, at least they're going.
Yeah, once in a while, every now and then. I get more mail about why my garbage is not going to be picked up this week than I do have my garbage picked up. I like the people, the sheer staff it takes to tell me what's not going to happen. Then I get to think, did you get this?
Hey, you know those 43 communications, those 43 communications people have to write something. Have to do something.
Cheers. Oh my God.
They're actually delivering them as well. Maybe that's why they take so many communication staff. They're actually out there dropping them off.
Did you get your property tax form that you have to declare your empty homes tax thing? You have to declare it, right? So I got it. Yeah. I got the email that said, you got to do it. And if you don't do it by this date, it's going to cost $275. I'm like, geez, I'm going to do it right now. Go on. Yeah. Sorry. It's broken. Can you come back?
No.
Yeah. And so I came back 3 days later and they're like, actually, can you come back after 8 tonight?
What kind of system is this?
I still haven't declared it.
You know how much the city spent on that website? $17 million was that to spend on that stupid website. I mean, it came with other bells and whistles as far as departmental efficiencies, but it hasn't led to more housing being built, that's for sure.
But don't you check if you can actually do the declaration before you push out the email that says you must declare now? Like,
I don't even know why we do those stupid things. It's a bunch of BS.
It's come on. Super stupid. And I missed the deadline by 5 minutes one year, and it cost me $275. Whoa. So that's why they do it, because they can collect a ticket off my ass.
Now there's a provincial one too.
Yep. Like, you have to do both. You have to do both every year.
Don't get me started.
I know. Okay, so but let's go to housing of a different kind. At least we have homes, which is great. Mm-hmm. There are all too many people who don't, especially impoverished, vulnerable people, vulnerable people who struggle with mental health and addiction issues and have nowhere to go and are living in Crab Park, or they're living in tents down Hastings Street. They're living in some rundown SRO that should be condemned and isn't, or in shelters that are overflowing and can't take their possessions in there. They can't have their pets in there. There are all kinds of reasons and problems, and we've been going around and around and around on that for 199 episodes. It was also one of our first topics was Oppenheimer Park. But this week, Premier David-Eby, as well as Minister of Housing Ravi Kahlon, and new Vancouver City Mayor and a bunch of city councillors made an announcement about some 90 temporary modular housing units that are going to be expedited down in the main and terminal area, as well as at the foot of Ash Street, 6th and 7th and Ash sort of area, with wraparound supports 24/7. And, there are 900 people living on Hastings Street. There are 3,000 homeless people. So 90 units is a start, I guess. It's better than writing a letter.
That letter writing. Yeah, at least two of the mayor and the premier were exchanging letters. That's a positive. I mean, this is okay. So I find the word temporary a bit challenging because they're not temporary. These places are pretty permanent. They're not going anywhere for certainly my lifetime.
Right.
These were started when I was in office. The province found some cash and made it available to all communities across the province or region, saying, here's some money, you can build these temporary modular houses, these homes. Vancouver stepped up really quickly. We got full support on council that I was in at that time. got a lot of pushback from certain neighborhoods where they were up in Marpole, for example, that said it's going to ruin our neighborhood. It's too close to a school. But it turns out that there are some ones that have some problems. They're not as problematic as they might be thought to have been. You just got to make sure you don't put too many in any one area. I think that's the problem. And might be pushing the limits of that with this new location. I feel that there's a lot of them that are being put into that area. And I just don't know if that model is good. So the question is, though, of course, great, 90 units, temporary modular housing. What about the permanent housing? And I know that Eby was kind of touched on that. But
he did, and let me jump in on that.
Since we started this program, and I still have not seen a program that's been of a level to provide permanent housing that should be coming from the feds and the province that's robust enough to actually solve the problem.
Right. Shovels should have been in the ground years ago on permanent solutions to this. There's no question about it. We've talked about it ad nauseum on here about how it's a federal government, provincial government, municipal government issue that it should be far more urgent than it is. And we have seen over these last 3 years that when there is something incredibly urgent, there is money to be found to do what is necessary. I mean, we've seen that. And it's astounding for so many people watching the opioid crisis continue. If I had to live on the street, I'd probably use too. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I wouldn't. I would have serious mental health struggles if I had to live on a street year round and not be able to find ways to support or house or clothe myself. I can't even imagine it. And honestly,
a multitude of problems a lot of these people have that are not being addressed by any level of government that to the level that it should be. Right. This is a national problem. We got to deal with it nationally. Where is the Prime Minister on this issue? Sometimes it is about throwing money at it, but if it's $1 a day for every Canadian as opposed to $100 a day for every Vancouverite, which is kind of what it's become. I think we as Canadians, and it's a truly Canadian thing to do, is step up. And I hate taxes. I hate paying taxes. But there's only one. I also think. I talked about this last week about there being a direct tie. I like to see where if I'm going to give you an extra buck, I want to know that it's going to the problem. Show me the journey of my money. That's hard for government to do. They don't really understand that, and they don't like to do it because they often will say, "Oh, we need some."
Did I just put it in this bucket over here, and then we got this bucket over here, and then there's billions of dollars extra, even though we thought there was going to be billions too few, and now it's like, what? But I will say about David-Eby, Premier David-Eby, when making this announcement on Wednesday, because he has been so tied to human rights, housing affordability along his career, he was rather unspun in his delivery. I'm not going to say almost, he did anticipate some of the pushback that would come from an announcement if he had kept it super generic. Like, we would have gotten this as a press release from City Hall in the last administration. It would have just been, here's what I'm thinking, and I won't be making myself available to the media. At least they were all standing there saying, here's what we're doing. We see it's a crisis. We know it's not enough, but we're starting somewhere. And I felt there was a little bit of relief there because he did say, yes, it's only 90, but that 90 will hopefully then elevate those 90 people in short order to even more secure permanent housing, which will then allow another 90 to come in that pulls them out of the shelter system, that pulls them off the street and out of the park. And he kind of came at it in a way that I thought, okay, well, good on you for at least addressing that.
I think that's when we talked, about on this show UnSpun, and we look at, the spin and the non-spin. And so in this case, I think, where you're looking at a politician who's willing to answer questions on the fly is always a good thing. That's how I always tried to be when I was in office, answer the question. And sometimes if you don't know the answer, this is a basic, principle in communications, is don't just say, I don't know the answer to that question. I'll get back to you.
Right.
But sticking to your notes is never 100% good either. So his skill as a orator and as a responder to media has been very effective. And I think media journalists really love politicians who talk like that. They prefer it, and it really it provides clarity. And even if he's from a back room, there's an assumption that he's just winging it, but he's not. Yeah. I would guarantee you that before that press conference, he has had his team go at him with multiple different ways of the questions that are going to be asked and how he will respond to it. He's a lawyer by trade. he practices. He would probably practice in front of a mirror. Even that's how lawyers do it before they go in there. They know what they're going to say. It seems like it's all casual, and that's a skill for sure. And it's something that takes a long time to learn. But if you can pull it off, it's a great. It's kind of spin, but it's not spin. It's prepared without being too prepared. So we'll see. It's certainly winning him favors, I think, with journalists in this province currently. He's in a very good place right now for.
He's active. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think that is reading well and playing well on the taxpayers' purview, if you will, like between the ICBC rate freeze that we talked about last week, I believe. Were we talking about that? No, we talked about it on the radio. We talked about it on the radio. That's what's confusing me, is because even though that doesn't solve even remotely the problem of affordability around ICBC for most people, the fact that young people, new drivers, their yearly full coverage is in the $3,000. So freezing it at $3,000 doesn't help a new driver.
When you talk to somebody from Alberta who pays $300,
yeah. It's a thing. It's a thing. So, but he is tackling some of those things in what feels like a public and meaningful way, even to just get those dialogues started. The dialogue started on each of those files that have felt rather stalled because of COVID, because of other reasons, because of many things. But it's like, I'm rambling on about this, but when taking that press briefing live yesterday, we at CKNW at the time were planning on dipping in, hearing what the meat of the news was, and we found ourselves sticking with it to listen to everything that Premier-Eby said, then sticking with it to listen to the Minister of Housing, and then also listening to Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim as an encapsulated. It sounded cohesive and concise, which really in the last number of years has not felt that way at all. It felt fragmented and discombobulated. And
it's a good metaphor or analogy of hopefully have things to come. I don't care if it's left or right of this political spectrum.
Exactly.
And this is certainly what Ken Sim talks about, and I think Eby feels the same way. And getting over the politics for now. And I think that there was this antagonism that existed certainly with Vision in Vancouver against the Liberals at the time provincially. They would intentionally go after each other. And even if you would perceive Ken Sim as right of center and Eby not on the other side of the spectrum, they don't appear at this point in time to be that way. And it might be because Eby's not so worried about Vancouver as he might be about Surrey and the police that are dealing with that. So I would say that when you look at the provincial government's role in a community, you need to start thinking about what's their intention. What do they need to win in the next election in that market, that community? In the case of Vancouver, housing is a high priority. The mayor that we have currently is very pro-housing and very into it. So that's good. Check that box. Now in Surrey, you've got a police force issue.
Right. So how does this play out?
How are they going to deal with that?
Surrey Police Services versus the Surrey RCMP. Brenda Locke, the new mayor, ran on the idea that she would get rid of the Surrey Police Services. Now there's a dollar figure associated with how much more it will cost. $235 million is the dollar figure that will, along with this report, land on the desk of Mike Farnworth, Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth, Deputy Premier, who will then need to make a decision as to which way this is going. And George, you've been talking about this since Doug McCallum ran on removing the RCMP and creating the Surrey Police Services, which was part of the platform that got him elected. Like, the political shell game here is unbelievable. But what do you see happening? Because it should be actually today or tomorrow that it goes to Farnworth. I think it is actually today. And a decision is expected by early January. What is there a good move here, or what will they consider in making this decision?
What we've been talking about since the beginning was the cost, and I always said way underestimating the cost. In Vancouver, the VPD costs over 30% of the overall budget. I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars. they were assuming they would be able to take what was the cost of the RCMP in Surrey and just easily move that over to their local police department. And I said, no way. I think at that point, their policing cost is like 10 or 15% of their budget in Surrey. Now, it is literally really now already 30% of this budget because of all this mess. And it probably will always be now 30% of their budget. Whether or not they can get rid of this other police force, the NDP have two issues here. They have it's quite a quagmire. They have the union issue. You got two unions that you need to please because NDP is pro-union, and you have a very important community where you've got to figure out where they stand on this issue
because you have to win that.
Ensure because Surrey's how this NDP won, and without Surrey, there's really a mess. So, and it might even they're literally out there polling, I'm sure, per neighborhood to figure out, okay, if we do this, which way will this neighborhood go, and if we do this, what will happen in this neighborhood? Okay, we're gonna have to weigh the numbers here to figure out the impact of whatever decision we make, because they are in the end the ones who have to make the decision. I think Surrey's asked them to decide, and they got to decide.
And it's not the loudest people on social media who are reflective of what Surrey wants. And that is something really wild because as most people know, but in case you don't, so I do the show with Linda Steele, right? I do Steele and Vance on Check on Thursdays at 8. Linda's husband is the chief of police for the Surrey Police Services. So I have this unique perspective of sort of, and she's talked about it on the show. At first she said she couldn't because people will attack her if she does, and they'll attack her if she doesn't. I'm like, well, great. Let's have the awkward conversation. So we did. And in talking it through, it's fascinating because Linda's take on it has very little to do with the inner workings of either, but how anything that she puts out about SPS and the RCMP, the number of trolls that you can recognize by name who, attack her in a way it's like the anti-masker and COVID zero people that come at me, or the hub cyclist people.
Oh God, yeah.
That come at, right?
One guy got banned today by Twitter for his hate bike cyclists.
Really?
In Vancouver, got banned because he was
really interesting.
So
good.
It's interesting, and speaking.
But my point was that the people who vote in Surrey aren't reflected in the people who are the loudest on Twitter. Right. Twitter's 22% of society. It's 78% of people are not on Twitter. So
do not make your policy decisions based on Twitter. But you have for your show, you have Dr. Speaking of hate and love, because it kind of goes both ways with her, Dr. Bonnie Henry on the show tonight, and I think that's kind of cool, and I think leads to our kind of wrap up because we've got a few minutes left to talk about the year in review.
Dr. Henry in studio with Linda and I. You can watch tonight. If you're watching on Thursday, you can watch tonight, 8 o'clock on Check. It replays on Sunday at 1 o'clock on Check.
And streams on anytime you want on
streams. Checkmedia.ca is where you find it, or the Check Plus app. I'm second guessing myself. Is it 4 o'clock on Sunday or 1 o'clock? I think it's 1 o'clock on Sundays. I don't know.
To me, that's like the biggest story of the year, of course, is kind of the end, to me, the end of COVID, obviously. That, that's for me personally, I mean, being able to now travel again, and I went to an event this morning and, back to normal. Some people are still kind of in denial or wanting to not move too quickly forward. You and I have talked about this, but we're in a good place right now.
Yeah. I was at a concert last night. I saw Feist. I was standing in a sea of humanity. Yeah. I was at the Fulmer and Company Christmas party, and they always have a surprise guest. Really? I think I told you last year. Feist was there. Yeah.
I saw Feist last night on the Stephen Colbert Christmas because we watch it every year, and she was one of the
well, she was supposed to be on tour with Arcade Fire, so she's not allowed to do ticketed events because that got canceled. So, but she was fantastic. But I did have that feeling. You're much more comfortable in that environment. I still had that feeling of like, there are too many people around me. I kind of stayed off to the side a little bit. I was not masked because I didn't feel that there was not enough circulation and ventilation in the place. I felt safe in that regard, but I didn't want to stand, packed with people because I'm still taking care of my parents. My mom was over day before yesterday. I was caring for her. My stepdad has one kidney as a cancer survivor. So everybody's got their level of, but I think, to your point, all of us are better off now because we have safe and effective vaccinations and cross immunization with people having had COVID, right? So And in BC, we're doing really good. So I think that is one of our biggest stories. And I learned most
Yep.
of that from Dr. Henry. Did she get absolutely everything right? No. But I look at her like, you're my age. You're me, but smarter. I can't imagine the weight of the world on this woman's shoulders. And I've never actually had an opportunity to sit down and talk with her. I've spoken with her on the phone once on radio with an echo in my ear at the same time, which was very uncomfortable. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have for 2 segments this evening.
So the other big issues of the year, though, I mean, it's been a crazy year with Ukraine. We got
Oh
we
my
have
God.
the midterms. We had World Cups happening right now.
Right?
There's so many things that we're looking at my list. We're out of time, but what a year!
Argentina,
What a
Argentina,
year it's
France.
been.
Are you picking between Argentina and France? That's
Oh,
huge final.
I live with an English person. It's over. We're moving on.
Okay, so those
And I'm
people who are
and the pool wall that we have a pool at the office here. I was a long time ago, so I'm like, there's not even $10 in it for me. So I don't really follow sports. Sorry, everybody.
Argentina. So went on Saturday when the final is happening.
Okay,
You got to say Lionel Messi,
okay.
Lionel Messi, because this will be his last World Cup. Sorry, the sportscaster in me is coming out for a quick second. This will be his final World Cup in a storied career. Should Argentina win this World Cup title, it would definitely solidify Lionel Messi as the greatest male football player on the planet, because the greatest
Bigger than
soccer player in the
Gretzky?
world, is Christine Sinclair. Mic drop.
Okay. All of these names mean nothing to me because I don't know what I'm
Well,
talking about.
people watching and listening know what I'm
I
talking
know. I'm
about, George.
kidding. I'm kidding. Go Canucks. Go Coconuts. Coconuts. Have a great Christmas, everybody, and or happy holiday, as we say, to cover
Hanukkah,
all
happy Hanukkah as
Hanukkah,
well.
and a great New Year. And we're going to take a break. We'll be back probably the second week of January. And
Call it the 12th of January.
okay,
Right?
and for episode 201, year 5, season 5, if you're counting years, or season 10 if you're like a TV show on
season 12, season 22. It's like
season
Survivor,
500.
man. We've lost count. See you later.
Thanks, Jody. Bye.
Bye.